My name is Grace Richardson, and I'm 68 years old. When my daughter announced at my grandson's 5th birthday party that she was putting me in a nursing home and selling my house, she forgot one crucial detail. The house was mine to sell, and I'd already made other plans. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I love hearing from people who understand that family isn't always what it seems. You see, after my husband passed 3 years ago, I thought my daughter Sarah would be my comfort. Instead, she and her husband Marcus saw me as their retirement plan. They just didn't expect this retired schoolteacher to give them a lesson they'd never forget. Let me take you back to when everything started to change. The house on Maple Street had been our dream home for 35 years. 4 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and gardens my late husband Tom had tended with such love. After he passed, those empty rooms echoed with memories. But they were my memories, my comfort. Sarah used to visit every Sunday after Tom died. She'd bring Tommy, and we'd bake cookies while she told me about her shifts at the hospital. "Mom, you know I'm always here for you," she'd say, hugging me tight. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my only child, the daughter I'd raised with all the love I had. Then Marcus entered the picture. At first I was happy. Sarah deserved love after her difficult divorce. Marcus was charming, successful, a real estate broker with a silver tongue and expensive suits. They married quickly, and I gave them my blessing, even paid for the wedding from Tom's life insurance. But things shifted subtly. Sunday visits became monthly. When they did come, Marcus would wander through my house, running his fingers along the crown molding, checking the foundation, asking about the roof's age. "Just making sure everything's safe for you, Mom," he'd say with that practiced smile. Mom, from his lips, felt like sandpaper. Sarah started mentioning how big the house was for one person. "All this maintenance must be exhausting," she'd say, though I'd never complained. I maintained everything perfectly. Tom had taught me well. The house was paid off, taxes current, garden thriving. One day I overheard Marcus on the phone in my kitchen. 4 bedrooms, original hardwood, corner lot, easily $800,000 in this market, maybe more. My blood chilled. He was appraising my home like I was already gone. Sarah began dropping hints about senior communities with built-in social activities. She'd leave brochures on my coffee table, bright pictures of elderly people playing cards, looking grateful to be warehoused together. "I'm perfectly fine here," I'd tell her. "Of course you are, Mom. We're just thinking ahead." Thinking ahead, as if my future was theirs to plan, as if I was already incapable of making my own decisions. The daughter who once called me her hero now looked at me like I was a problem to be solved, or worse, an asset to be liquidated. I should have seen what was coming, but even then, I never imagined they'd ambush me at my own grandson's birthday party. The changes accelerated after Marcus's business hit what he called a rough patch. He never elaborated, but I noticed Sarah's designer handbags disappeared, replaced by department store knockoffs. Their new BMW became a leased sedan. The stress carved lines around my daughter's eyes that hadn't been there before. "Mom, you're all alone in this big house," Sarah said during one visit, Marcus hovering behind her like a shadow. "What if you fall? What if something happens?" "I have my emergency button, dear, and Mrs. Patterson next door checks on me." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Neighbors aren't family, Grace. They won't be there when you really need help." Funny how family only seemed to visit when they needed something, like when Marcus asked to review my homeowner's insurance just to ensure I had adequate coverage, or when Sarah wondered if I'd updated my will recently, given Dad's been gone 3 years now. The final straw came through Mrs. Patterson herself. She knocked on my door one Tuesday, wringing her hands. "Grace, I don't mean to pry, but Sarah told me you've been having memory issues. She said you've been confused lately, forgetting things." My hands trembled as I set down my teacup. "Memory issues? She asked me to keep an eye on you, report anything unusual. Grace, I've known you 20 years. You're sharp as a tack. Why would she say such things?" That's when I knew. They weren't just planning for my future. They were creating a narrative. The concerned daughter, the failing mother. How long before confused became incompetent? How long before they had grounds to make decisions for me? 2 days later, I caught Marcus in my house when I returned early from grocery shopping. He had a measuring tape and a man I didn't recognize. "Grace, we were just—" Sarah asked me to check the water heater. The stranger was taking photos of my living room, of my kitchen, of my life. "Get out," I said quietly. "Now, Mom. I'm not your mother. Get out of my house." They left, but Marcus's parting look promised this wasn't over. That night, Sarah called, voice syrupy sweet. "Mom, Tommy's birthday party is next week. We're having it at your house, remember? You insisted." I hadn't insisted on anything, but I agreed, sensing something brewing. If they wanted to use my grandson's birthday for their schemes, they'd chosen their battlefield poorly. They had no idea this retired teacher still had some lessons to teach. Tommy's 5th birthday should have been pure joy. I'd spent 2 days baking his favorite chocolate cake, hanging streamers, and setting up the party games in the backyard. 30 guests arrived, Sarah's friends, their children, some neighbors I'd known for years. Tommy hugged me tight, his eyes bright with excitement. "Grandma, this is the best party ever." If only it had stayed that way. Everything seemed normal at first. Children laughing, parents chatting, Marcus working the crowd with his salesman charm. Sarah looked radiant in her blue dress, playing the perfect hostess in my home. I was refilling the punch bowl when she clinked her fork against her glass. "Everyone, could I have your attention?" The backyard quieted. Parents gathered their children closer, sensing an announcement. My stomach twisted as Sarah's smile took on that practiced quality I'd seen on Marcus's face too often. "First, thank you all for celebrating Tommy's special day. We're so grateful for your friendship and support, especially during this challenging time." Challenging time? I set down the punch ladle. As many of you know, my mother has been living alone since Dad passed. She's been so strong, but— Sarah's voice caught dramatically. "We can't ignore the signs anymore. Mom needs more care than we can provide at home." The yard went silent, except for a child asking for more cake. My neighbors exchanged glances. Mrs. Patterson's mouth fell open. "Marcus and I have found a wonderful assisted living facility, Sunset Gardens. They specialize in seniors who need extra support. Mom will have her own room, activities, medical supervision." My legs felt wooden. She was doing this here, now, in front of everyone, making it public so I couldn't refuse without seeming unreasonable. Marcus stepped forward, arm around Sarah. "We've already toured it, picked out a lovely room with a garden view. The transition coordinator says they can have her settled by month's end." "And the house?" someone asked. "We'll handle the sale," Marcus said smoothly. "Use the proceeds for her care, of course. The market's perfect right now. She'll be set for years." 30 pairs of eyes turned to me, some pitying, some shocked, most uncomfortable. Tommy tugged at my dress. "Grandma, are you going away?" I looked at my daughter, standing in my backyard, disposing of my life like I wasn't even there. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could. "Well, Mom," Sarah prompted, "don't you want to thank everyone for their support?" My moment had come. I stood slowly, my hand steady on Tommy's shoulder. Every eye in that backyard was on me, the poor, declining widow who needed to be managed, handled, placed somewhere convenient. The silence stretched like taffy. "How thoughtful of you, Sarah," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the yard. "Planning my future without consulting me, how very efficient." Sarah's smile flickered. "Mom, we've discussed this." "No, dear, you've discussed it with Marcus, with facility coordinators, with everyone apparently except me." Mrs. Patterson stepped forward. "Grace, you don't have to." "It's all right, Patricia." I squeezed Tommy's shoulder gently before walking to the center of the yard. "Since my daughter has chosen this moment to discuss my living arrangements, perhaps we should discuss all the facts." Marcus's face darkened. "Grace, you're obviously upset. Maybe we should table this." "I'm not upset, Marcus. I'm disappointed. You measured my house for sale 2 weeks ago. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Or did you assume I was too confused to understand?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sarah's cheeks flushed red. "Mom, that's not— we were just preparing to sell my home, the home your father and I built together, the home that's been paid off for 15 years. I looked directly at my daughter. The home you told the neighbors I was too impaired to maintain, despite the fact that I host book club twice a month and volunteer at the literacy center 3 days a week. Mom, please. I particularly enjoyed the brochures you left last week. Sunset Gardens, was it? I called them. Lovely place. $10,000 a month. How fortunate that my house would cover several years of care. Very convenient. The crowd was riveted now. This wasn't the confused old woman they'd been led to expect. Marcus stepped forward, trying to salvage control. Grace, we only want what's best. Then you should have asked me what I want. I pulled Tommy close. Sweetheart, Grandma's not going anywhere. This is my home. Sarah's composure finally cracked. Mom, you can't live here alone forever. You need help. The only help I need is family, who respects me enough to include me in decisions about my own life. I walked back toward the house, then turned. Please, everyone, enjoy the party. There's plenty of cake. Sarah, Marcus, I think we need to have a real conversation, privately, without the audience you so carefully assembled. As I walked inside, I heard the whispers starting. Good. Let them talk. Let them see what my daughter tried to do. But they hadn't seen anything yet. Tom's voice echoed in my memory. Grace, promise me, never let anyone take your dignity. I wouldn't. Not even my own daughter. After the party guests awkwardly departed, Sarah and Marcus stayed to clean up, though I knew they were regrouping. I escaped to my bedroom and pulled out the business card hidden in my jewelry box. Robert Stone, estate attorney. Tom's old friend and golf partner. I'd called him the morning after Marcus was caught measuring my house. Grace, Robert had said when we met at his office. Tom was worried something like this might happen. That's why he set things up the way he did. What do you mean? Robert pulled out a thick folder. The house is in your name alone. Tom transferred full ownership to you 5 years before he passed. He also established a trust that kicks in only if someone tries to force you from your home or have you declared incompetent. My hands shook as I read the documents. He knew? He saw how Sarah's first husband manipulated her. He worried she might choose another controller. Tom protected you, Grace. What are my options? Several, but here's what I'd suggest. Robert outlined a plan that would secure my future while teaching Sarah and Marcus a lesson they'd never forget. Now, sitting on my bed with those papers, I heard Sarah's voice drift up from the kitchen, sharp and frustrated. Marcus's deeper tones responded, planning, calculating. They thought they had me cornered. I dialed Robert's number. It's time. The foundation papers are ready, Grace. Once you sign, the house transfers to the Thompson Educational Foundation with a life estate for you. You can live here until you pass, rent-free, all maintenance covered. The foundation will use it for their after-school programs when the time comes. And the proceeds? The foundation pays fair market value, $850,000. It goes directly into the Thomas Richardson Memorial Scholarship Fund. Ironclad. No one can touch it, not even you. It will fund college education for underprivileged kids forever. I thought of Tom, how he'd mentored struggling students for 30 years. He'd love this. There's one thing, Robert added. Once you sign, it's irreversible. Your daughter will never inherit this house. I looked at our wedding photo on the nightstand. Tom's eyes seemed to twinkle with approval. Bring the papers tomorrow, I said. Sarah's planning a family meeting to discuss my transition. She's invited witnesses to pressure me into compliance. Grace, are you sure you want to do it publicly? They humiliated me publicly. They can face the consequences the same way. That night, I heard Sarah tell Marcus, she'll cave. She has to. Where else would she go? Oh, my dear daughter. You taught high school for 10 years, but you never learned the most important lesson. Never underestimate a teacher with tenure. The next week was a masterclass in pressure tactics. Sarah called daily, her voice cycling between concern and frustration. Mom, I've scheduled tours at 3 different facilities. Just come look. That's all I'm asking. I'm not interested, Sarah. You're being stubborn. What happens when you can't manage the stairs? When you forget your medication? I haven't forgotten medication in 40 years of taking blood pressure pills. Marcus tried a different approach. He showed up with a contractor, claiming the roof needed immediate repairs. Could be 20,000, Grace. Maybe more. Can you handle that? My roof was replaced 3 years ago. 10-year warranty. Please leave. His face went red. You can't keep fighting us. We're trying to help. No, you're trying to help yourselves to my house. The lowest blow came through Tommy. Sarah brought him over, coached him to say, Grandma, Mommy says you'll be happier with other grandmas to play with. I knelt down, looking into his innocent eyes. Tommy, I'm happiest right here, where I can see you any time. But Daddy says you're too old to take care of a big house. Your daddy says a lot of things, sweetheart. Sarah pulled him away quickly after that. They tried involving others. Sarah's friend Linda, a nurse, called to discuss the dangers of aging in place. Marcus's brother Michael, the lawyer, sent a formal letter about power of attorney. They even had their pastor drop by to discuss honoring family wishes. To each, I responded the same. Thank you for your concern. I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions. Meanwhile, I was busy with Robert. We met at the foundation office, where I signed the papers with the director, Mrs. Hamilton, as witness. The house was sold, the scholarship fund established. The foundation agreed to keep it quiet until I was ready to announce. This is incredibly generous, Mrs. Richardson, Mrs. Hamilton said. Your husband would be so proud. He always said education was the only inheritance that mattered. The day before the family meeting, I overheard Marcus on speakerphone with someone. Yeah, once we get her signature on the POA, we move fast. List the house immediately. I've got a developer interested. Might go for $1 million if we market it right. Sarah was in the room. She said nothing to stop him. That's when I knew I'd lost my daughter completely. She wasn't being manipulated anymore. She was a willing participant. The woman I'd raised, who'd once wanted to be a teacher like her father, now saw me as nothing but a payday. I slept peacefully that night for the first time in weeks. Tomorrow, they'd learn what happened when you tried to dispose of someone who'd spent 40 years managing middle schoolers. The teacher was about to school them all. Can you believe what Sarah and Marcus are doing? I need to pause here and ask, if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced family members who didn't respect your autonomy? I read every single comment, and your stories help others know they're not alone. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Your support means everything to me. Now let me tell you how Grace handled this family meeting. Trust me, you won't see this coming. While Sarah and Marcus plotted my removal, I was orchestrating something far more permanent. The morning after signing with the foundation, I met Mrs. Hamilton again, this time with Robert present. We need to discuss the transition details, she said, spreading papers across her desk. The foundation will take ownership in 2 weeks, but your life estate begins immediately. You'll never pay property tax, insurance, or maintenance again. And I can stay until you pass or choose to leave. No one can force you out, Mrs. Richardson. Not family, not the courts, no one. Robert added, the scholarship fund is already active. We've selected our first recipient, Maria Santos, valedictorian at Tom's old school. She'll be the first Thompson Scholar this fall. I thought of Tom, how he'd stayed late tutoring kids who couldn't afford private help. Maria's family had immigrated from Guatemala. Her father worked 3 jobs. Tom would have loved this. There's more, Mrs. Hamilton continued. The foundation wants to honor Tom's legacy. We're naming the after-school program the Thomas Richardson Learning Center. It'll operate from the house's first floor whenever you're ready. My eyes welled. He'd be so happy. Grace, Robert warned. Once Sarah learns about this, she'll be furious. Are you prepared? She made her choice when she ambushed me at Tommy's party, when she told neighbors I was declining, when she let Marcus measure my home for sale while I was out. I spent the rest of the week preparing. I gathered every document, the deed, the trust papers, the foundation contract, the scholarship fund establishment papers. I placed them in a leather folder, the one Tom used for his important teaching awards. I also wrote a letter to Sarah, not to give her, just to clarify my thoughts. In it, I poured out my disappointment, my love, my hope that someday she'd understand. I sealed it, putting it in my jewelry box. Maybe someday I'd give it to her. Maybe not. The night before the meeting, Mrs. Patterson came by with cookies. Grace, the whole neighborhood's talking about what happened at the party. We're worried about you. Don't worry, Patricia. Tomorrow everything becomes clear. You seem different, calmer. I am. You know that feeling when you've graded all your finals and know exactly who passed and who failed? That's how I feel. She hugged me. Whatever happens, we're here for you. After she left, I stood in my living room, looking at the photos covering every wall. Tom and me on our wedding day, Sarah's first steps, Tom getting his Teacher of the Year award, Sarah's college graduation, Tommy's birth. This house held our entire life. Soon, it would help other families build their futures. Tom would have called it poetic justice. Tomorrow, Sarah would call it betrayal. I called it survival. The family meeting was scheduled for Saturday at 2 o'clock. Sarah arrived early to set up, which meant arranging the living room like a tribunal. She placed 3 chairs facing one, mine, obviously, the defendant's seat. "Mom, I want this to go smoothly," she said, arranging papers on the coffee table. "Just listen with an open mind, okay?" "I always do, dear." Marcus arrived with his brother Michael, who carried a briefcase that screamed legal intimidation. They whispered in the corner, occasionally glancing at me as I calmly sipped my tea. "Grace," Michael began formally, "I'm here as a neutral party to ensure everything is handled properly." How thoughtful. Though I wonder how neutral you can be when Marcus is paying your hourly rate. His jaw tightened. "I'm family, Grace. This is about your well-being." "Of course it is." Sarah had prepared a presentation, actually prepared slides on her laptop, like I was a difficult student needing visual aids. The first slide read, "Transitioning Mom, a Family Plan." "Mom," she began, "we've outlined everything. The facilities, the costs, the timeline. Sunset Gardens has an opening next month. Sarah, who else is coming to this meeting?" She blinked. "What? It's just family. I think we need witnesses for something this important." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Why would we need witnesses?" "You felt the need for an audience at Tommy's party. I'd like some support too." "Mom, that's not necessary." I was already dialing. "Patricia?" "Yes. Could you come over? Bring Helen and Frank if they're free." Sarah stood up. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Ensuring transparency. You value that, don't you? After all, you announced my future to 30 people last week." Within 10 minutes, Mrs. Patterson arrived with the Johnsons from across the street. Sarah and Marcus exchanged panicked looks. "We should reschedule," Marcus muttered. "Nonsense," I said. "You've prepared such a thorough presentation. Please continue." Sarah, flustered but trapped, resumed her pitch. She showed facility photos, discussed costs, presented a timeline for selling the house. Michael occasionally chimed in with legal terminology about power of attorney and estate management. My neighbors sat silent, but their presence changed everything. Sarah couldn't use emotional manipulation. Marcus couldn't apply pressure tactics. They had to stick to facts, and facts made them sound exactly like what they were. Vultures circling what they assumed was dying prey. "The house could sell for $900,000, Marcus said. "That would cover 7 years of care." "Longer if we invest wisely," Michael added. "And if Mom lives longer than that?" Mrs. Patterson asked pointedly. Silence. "We'll cross that bridge if we come to it," Sarah said. I set down my teacup. "I have an announcement, too." The room tensed. I reached for the leather folder, Tom's folder, and stood up. "Since you've all gathered to plan my future, perhaps you should know. It's already been decided." Sarah's presentation froze on a slide titled, "Financial Benefits of Downsizing." The irony wasn't lost on me. "What do you mean, decided?" Marcus demanded. "I mean, I've made my own arrangements. But first, I'd like to thank you, Sarah, for this thorough presentation. You've clearly put a lot of work into planning my life without me." "Mom, don't be dramatic." "Dramatic?" I looked at my neighbors. Was I being dramatic when they announced my nursing home placement at a 5-year-old's birthday party? Mrs. Patterson spoke up. "That was cruel, Sarah. Your mother deserved better." "You don't understand the full situation," Sarah snapped. "Then explain it," I said. "Tell them about my memory problems. The confusion you reported. Give them specifics." Sarah's mouth opened, then closed. Can't think of any? Let me help. Last month I forgot to buy your favorite coffee creamer when you visited. 2 months ago I called you Tuesday instead of Wednesday. That's it. That's my cognitive decline. You live alone in this big house? Which I maintain perfectly. Patricia, when were you here last? Thursday for book club. 20 ladies. Grace hosted beautifully. Her memory's better than mine. She remembers every plot point from every book we've read this year. Michael cleared his throat. Regardless, planning for the future is prudent. I agree completely. That's why I met with my own lawyer. The room went silent. Marcus and Michael exchanged glances. What lawyer? Sarah asked. Robert Stone, your father's friend. You remember him? He did your divorce pro bono because Tom asked him to. I opened the folder, pulling out documents. These are legal papers. Signed, notarized, and filed with the county. What kind of papers? Michael reached for them. I held them back. The kind that ensure my future is my choice, not yours. Mom, what did you do? Sarah's voice went shrill. I exercised my rights as a competent adult, something you seem to have forgotten I am. Frank Johnson spoke up. Good for you, Grace. Nobody should be railroaded like this. Marcus stood, his face red. This is a private family matter. Then you shouldn't have made it public, Helen Johnson interjected. Half the neighborhood heard about that party announcement. Grace, Michael used his lawyer voice, if you've signed something under duress or without understanding, I understood perfectly. Just like I understand that Marcus has been shopping my house to developers. Just like I understand that Sunset Gardens costs $10,000 a month, which would conveniently drain my estate within years. How dare you? Marcus started. How dare I? I dare because this is my house, my life, my decision. I stood taller, feeling Tom's strength flowing through me. Now, would you like to hear what I've actually done, or would you prefer to leave with some dignity intact? Sarah sank into her chair. Tell us. The moment of truth had arrived. Marcus paced like a caged animal while Michael adjusted his glasses repeatedly, his nervous tell from when he was a law student. Sarah sat frozen, her carefully prepared slides abandoned on the laptop screen. Before I explain, I said, settling back into my chair, I want to share something Tom told me before he died. Dad? What does Dad have to do with this? Sarah's voice cracked. Everything. He said, Grace, our house is more than walls and memories. It's potential. Promise me, if anyone tries to take your dignity, use the house to keep it. That's very touching, Marcus said sarcastically, but I wasn't finished. My teacher voice stopped him cold. He also said, Sarah loves you, but she picks men who think for her. Protect yourself. Sarah flinched as if slapped. Dad said that? He loved you, sweetheart, but he saw patterns. Your first husband convinced you to quit teaching. Now Marcus has convinced you I'm incompetent. Nobody convinced me of anything. Really? Then tell me, when did I become incapable? Was it before or after Marcus's business troubles started? Silence stretched thick as molasses. Mrs. Patterson leaned forward. Grace, dear, you don't have to justify yourself to anyone. You're right, Patricia, but they need to hear this. I pulled out the first document. This is a deed transfer, dated last week. The house has been sold. What? Sarah and Marcus shouted in unison. Michael grabbed the paper, scanning rapidly. This is real. Thompson Educational Foundation? The same foundation that runs the literacy center where I volunteer, where Tom volunteered for 20 years. You can't sell without, Marcus started. Without what? Your permission? The house was in my name alone. Tom made sure of that. How much? Sarah whispered. How much did you get? $850,000. Marcus's eyes lit up briefly before I continued, which has already been transferred into the Thomas Richardson Memorial Scholarship Fund. Irrevocable. It will fund college education for underprivileged students forever. The room exploded. You gave it away? Marcus roared. $800,000? Tom's legacy isn't for sale. Sarah was crying now. Mom, how could you? That was our future. No, dear. It was my house. Your future is what you build yourself. Michael was still reading. There's a life estate clause here. Yes, I live here rent-free until I die or choose to leave. All maintenance covered by the foundation. I can never be forced out. This is insane, Marcus shouted. We can challenge this. You're obviously not competent. Try it, Robert Stone said from the doorway. Everyone spun around. I'd texted him when the neighbors arrived. Robert Stone, Mrs. Richardson's attorney. Any challenge to her mental capacity would require proof. I have her recent medical records, testimonials from 40 neighbors, and documentation of her volunteer work. Would you like to proceed, counselor? Michael shrank back. No, we need to discuss this. I stood in my living room, surrounded by the people who'd tried to plan my disposal and those who'd come to witness it. The leather folder felt warm in my hands. Tom's folder, holding our final lesson plan. Thank you for coming, Robert. I nodded to my lawyer, who positioned himself beside my chair. Wouldn't miss it, Grace. Tom would have enjoyed this. I turned to face everyone, drawing on 40 years of commanding classrooms. Since we're all here to discuss my future, let me share what that future looks like. Sarah wiped her tears with shaking hands. Mom, please. You had your presentation, dear. Now it's my turn. I pulled out another document. This is from the Thompson Foundation. After I pass, this house becomes the Thomas Richardson Learning Center. Free tutoring for underprivileged kids, just like Tom did from this very dining room table. You're giving our inheritance to strangers? Sarah's voice broke. I'm giving Tom's legacy to the future. There's a difference. Mrs. Patterson smiled. Tom tutored my grandson here, changed his life. He's in engineering school now. That's what this house should be, I continued. Not a windfall for people who see me as an obstacle to wealth, but a place where dreams get built. Marcus slammed his fist on the coffee table. This is financial elder abuse. You're destroying your family's security. No, Marcus. I'm securing my dignity and teaching a lesson you desperately need. I pulled out the final document, a photograph, Maria Santos, holding her acceptance letter to Stanford. This is Maria, first recipient of the Thomas Richardson Scholarship. Daughter of immigrants, brilliant student, couldn't afford application fees, let alone tuition. Now she's going to Stanford, pre-med. I showed it to Sarah. Remember when you wanted to be a doctor, before your first husband convinced you nursing was more appropriate? Sarah's facade finally cracked completely. Why are you doing this to me? I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing something for me, and for students like Maria. I set down the photo. You know what Tom said the night before he died? Grace, we saved and sacrificed so Sarah could have choices. Make sure she remembers that gift when it's her turn to give. So this is punishment? Sarah sobbed. No, sweetheart. It's a reminder. You have a good job, a healthy son, abilities and opportunities most people dream of. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that those things are enough. You started seeing my house as your retirement plan, me as an impediment to wealth you never earned. Robert cleared his throat. There's one more thing, Mrs. Richardson. I nodded. He pulled out an envelope. The foundation wanted you to have this, Sarah. I handed it to her. It's not what you expected, but it's what Tom would have wanted. Sarah opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a certificate establishing the Sarah Richardson Nursing Scholarship, $50,000 set aside specifically for nursing students, funded by a portion of the house sale. I don't understand, she whispered. You're a good nurse, Sarah. When you're not being Marcus's wife, you're compassionate, skilled, dedicated. This scholarship ensures one nursing student each year can focus on their studies, not their bills. It's named after you because the daughter I raised, before she lost her way, would have wanted this. The room was silent, except for Sarah's quiet sobs. Your father believed in education above all else, I said softly. This house educated you. Now it will educate hundreds more. That's not loss, Sarah. That's legacy. The silence shattered when Marcus lunged for the documents. Robert stepped forward, blocking him. Those papers are fraudulent. She's senile. We have witnesses. You have witnesses to what? Robert asked calmly. A competent woman making legal decisions about her own property? I pulled out my final card, a small digital recorder from my pocket. Speaking of witnesses, I said, pressing play. Marcus's voice filled the room. Yeah, once we get her signature on the POA, we move fast. List the house immediately. I've got a developer interested. Might go for $1 million if we market it right. Then Sarah's voice. Just make sure the nursing home paperwork is ready. We can't have her backing out. Marcus. Don't worry. Once she's in Sunset Gardens, who's going to listen to her? We'll have control of everything. I clicked stop. The room was tomb silent. You recorded us? Sarah gasped. In my own home? Yes. Legal in this state, Robert? Completely legal. One-party consent state. Michael had gone pale. Marcus, Sarah, we need to leave now. I'm not finished, I said. There's more. I pulled out a bank statement. This is interesting. Marcus, your business account received a $50,000 deposit from Premier Developers 2 weeks ago. The memo says Maple Street Consultation. That's my street. My house. That's private banking information, Marcus sputtered. Actually, it was in the trash. You threw it away here after using my home office to make your calls. Patricia's grandson found it when he helped me take out the garbage. Mrs. Patterson nodded. I saw it too, clear as day. You took a finder's fee, I continued, for a house you didn't own, from a developer you promised first dibs. Is that legal, Michael? The lawyer brother was sweating. I wasn't aware. Of course you weren't. Just like Sarah wasn't aware that Sunset Gardens gave Marcus a referral bonus for each resident, $5,000. Were you going to share that with your wife, Marcus? Sarah turned to her husband, shock replacing tears. You were getting paid? It's standard practice. You were selling my mother for a bonus? The marriage crackling could be heard by everyone. Robert spoke up. Mrs. Richardson, would you like to pursue fraud charges? That depends, I said, looking at my daughter. On what happens next? Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm. We're leaving. This isn't over, Grace. You can't just... I can and I did. The house is sold. The contracts are ironclad. The money is gone. Gone to education, to futures, to dreams. Everything Tom and I believed in. You'll regret this, Marcus snarled. When you're old and alone. I'd rather be alone with my dignity than surrounded by vultures. Frank Johnson stood up. I think you folks should leave now, Helen added, before we share what we've heard with the rest of the neighborhood. Sarah looked at me one last time, mascara streaming. I'm your daughter, your only child. How could you choose strangers over me? I didn't choose strangers, Sarah. I chose myself, something you should try sometime. They left, Marcus dragging Sarah, Michael scurrying behind. The door slammed with the finality of a period at the end of a very long sentence. The front door's slam echoed through my house like a judge's gavel. Marcus's tires squealed as he peeled away, but Sarah's car remained in the driveway. Through the window, I could see her sitting behind the wheel, shoulders shaking. Mrs. Patterson touched my arm. Grace, are you all right? I will be. Robert began gathering the documents. That recording was brilliant, Grace. When did you start? The day Marcus brought a contractor to inspect my roof. I bought the recorder that afternoon. Frank Johnson whistled. You played the long game. 40 years of teaching teenagers, you learned to document everything. Helen hugged me. We should go. Let you process this. Thank you all for coming, for witnessing. They filed out quietly, but Mrs. Patterson lingered. Your daughter's still outside. I know. Will you talk to her? When she's ready, if she's ever ready. After everyone left, I sat in Tom's chair, staring at our wedding photo. Did I do right, Tom? Did I go too far? The house creaked gently, the way it always did at sunset. Tom used to say it was the house settling in for the night, getting comfortable. It felt like an answer. 20 minutes later, there was a quiet knock. Sarah stood at the door, makeup gone, looking younger than her 42 years. Can I come in? It's still my house for now. You're always welcome. She sat across from me, in the same chair where she'd planned my removal. Marcus is at a hotel, she said quietly. He's calling lawyers. That's his right. He won't win, will he? No. Silence stretched between us, years of hurt and love tangled together like old yarn. Did Dad really say that? About me picking men who think for me? Yes, the week before he died. He was right. She laughed bitterly. David convinced me to quit teaching. Marcus convinced me you were a problem to solve. I'm 42 years old, and I've never made a major decision by myself. That's not true. You decided to become a nurse after David left. That was all you. With your support, your money, my help, your decision, your hard work. She started crying again, but differently. Cleaner tears, like spring rain. I'm so sorry, Mom. I got so caught up in Marcus's plans, his dreams, I forgot you're a person. Not just my mother, not an obstacle, but a person with your own life. I know, sweetheart. The recording. How much more do you have? Hours, including Marcus discussing with his brother how to have me declared incompetent if I resisted. Oh, God. She buried her face in her hands. What have I become? Someone who lost their way. The question is, what will you become now? I don't know. I don't even know where to start. I reached across and took her hand. Start by remembering who you were before men told you who to be. The girl who wanted to help people heal. She's still in there. How can you even look at me after what I did? Because I'm your mother. That doesn't mean I'll be your victim, but it does mean I'll always love you, even when I don't like you very much. Wow, did you see that coming? Grace just turned the tables completely. I need to pause here. If you're enjoying this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear this message about standing up for yourself. What would you have done in Grace's situation? Comment below. I read every single one. Your stories help others know they're not alone. And remember to subscribe if you haven't yet. Now, let's continue to see how this all ends and what becomes of Grace and Sarah's relationship. Sarah stayed another hour, and we talked, really talked, for the first time in years. She told me about Marcus's mounting debts, his failed investments, the pressure he put on her to solve their problems with my house. When did I become someone who would do that? She asked. Who would sell out my own mother? When you started believing your worth came from your husband's approval. Like with David. Like with David. She stood to leave, then turned back. The scholarship, the one in my name. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Because the Sarah I raised, the one who cried when she couldn't save every patient, she deserves to be remembered. Maybe seeing young nurses achieve their dreams will help you remember who you are. Marcus will fight the divorce if I file. Then fight back. You're stronger than you think. I don't even know where to live. We were behind on rent. That's why he was so desperate for your house. I pulled out a key. The garage apartment. It's been empty since we converted it for Dad's office. It's yours if you want it, temporarily. After everything? You're still my daughter, but there are conditions. Therapy, weekly, and you contribute, help with groceries, yard work. Be my daughter, not my landlord. She took the key with shaking hands. Tommy, Marcus will fight for custody. Then you fight harder. Document everything. Robert will help. He likes you, remembers the girl who brought him cookies during Dad's chemo. 3 days later, she moved into the garage apartment with Tommy. Marcus showed up once, shouting about kidnapping and theft. Robert met him at the door with a restraining order and the full recording of his schemes. Marcus never came back. The divorce was ugly but quick. The recording of Marcus discussing my disposal didn't play well with the judge. Sarah got primary custody and something more valuable, her self-respect. I watched from my kitchen window as she taught Tommy to plant tomatoes in the garden bed Tom had built. He was gentle with the seedlings, careful and precise, like his grandfather had been. "Grandma," Tommy called. "Look, I'm helping Mommy grow food." "You're doing wonderfully, sweetheart." Sarah looked up at me, dirt on her cheeks, smile tentative but real. "Mom, thank you for not giving up on me." I gave up on the woman Marcus created. I never gave up on my daughter. That evening, Maria Santos called. She'd gotten her financial aid package from Stanford, made possible by the scholarship. "Mrs. Richardson, I don't know how to thank you. Graduate, become a doctor, help people. That's thanks enough. I will, I promise." After we hung up, I sat in Tom's chair, looking at his photo. "We did it, love. The house is safe, Sarah's finding herself again, and Maria's going to Stanford. Not bad for a retired teacher, right?" The house creaked its evening creak, and I swear I felt Tom's hand on my shoulder, warm and proud. And 3 months had passed since the confrontation that changed everything. The Thompson Foundation had begun transforming the first floor into the learning center, but I barely noticed the construction. My life had found a rhythm I hadn't expected, fuller, richer, purposeful. Tuesday mornings, I volunteered at the Literacy Center. Wednesday afternoons, I met with scholarship applicants. Thursdays, book clubs still gathered in my living room. But the biggest change was Sunday dinners. Sarah and Tommy joined me every Sunday now, not as obligatory visits, but as genuine family time. We cooked together, Sarah teaching Tommy the recipes her grandmother had taught her, recipes she'd forgotten during her years of trying to be someone else's ideal wife. "Mom," she said one Sunday, chopping vegetables while Tommy colored at the table, "I got promoted, charge nurse for the pediatric ward." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." "My supervisor said I've changed, more confident, more decisive." She paused. "More like myself." "You were always capable. You just forgot for a while." Tommy looked up from his drawing. "Grandma, will you always live here?" "As long as I want to, buddy." "Good, because I like our garden." Our garden. Sarah and I exchanged smiles. The tomatoes were thriving, along with beans, peppers, and Tommy's special patch of sunflowers that now reached his shoulders. That evening, Mrs. Patterson stopped by with news. "Grace, you'll never guess. Marcus was arrested." "What?" "Fraud. Apparently he pulled the same scheme with 3 other elderly clients, took deposits for houses he didn't own. Someone reported him." I felt no satisfaction, just sadness for the man who'd corrupted my daughter's good heart with his greed. Later, as Sarah tucked Tommy into bed in the garage apartment, I heard him ask, "Mommy, why did Daddy try to make Grandma leave?" "Because sometimes people forget what's really important," Sarah answered. "But Grandma reminded us. What's really important? Love, family, being kind, having enough instead of always wanting more. Grandma's smart, the smartest person I know." I turned away from the window, wiping my eyes. Tom's photo smiled at me from the mantel. "She's learning, Tom. Our girl is finding her way back." That night, I received an email from Mrs. Hamilton at the foundation. They'd received enough donations to fund 10 scholarships next year instead of 5. An anonymous donor had been moved by the story of the house that became a legacy. I suspected Robert, who'd known Tom since college, but he'd never admit it. Before bed, I walked through my house, still mine, always mine until I chose otherwise. The walls held 4 decades of memories, but now they also held promise. Soon, students would sit at the dining room table where Tom had tutored for free. They'd study in the living room where Sarah had taken her first steps. They'd dream in the space where our family had loved and fought and grown. The house wasn't just preserved, it was transformed. Like Sarah, like me, like the way Tom always believed things could be if you just had the courage to teach the hard lessons. 6 months after that terrible birthday party, I stood in Riverside Park watching Tommy feed ducks with the patience Tom had once shown teaching reluctant readers. Sarah sat beside me on the bench, a different woman than the one who'd tried to dispose of me. "Mom, I need to tell you something." My chest tightened. "What is it?" "I've been seeing someone." "Oh?" "My therapist's colleague, another divorced parent. He's different. He asks my opinion, listens when I talk. He has no idea about the house, the money, any of it." "How long?" 2 months. I wanted to be sure before I told you. I wanted to be sure I wasn't just falling into old patterns. I studied my daughter's face. There was something there I hadn't seen in years. Self-assurance. "His name's Daniel. He's a social worker. He wants to meet you, but I told him not yet. I need more time to be just Sarah, not someone's wife or girlfriend." "Good for you." "Really?" "Really. You're thinking for yourself. That's all I ever wanted." Tommy ran over, breathless with excitement. "Grandma, the ducks remember me from last time." "Of course they do. You're memorable." As he ran back to the pond, Sarah said quietly, Marcus called yesterday, from jail. And? He wanted money for bail, said I owed him for destroying his life. She laughed, but it wasn't bitter. I hung up. Didn't argue, didn't explain, just hung up. It felt powerful. You are powerful. You always were. We sat in comfortable silence, watching Tommy make friends with another child by the pond. The afternoon sun painted everything golden, like the wheat fields Tom and I had driven through on our honeymoon. The Learning Center opens next month, I said. I know. Tommy made a welcome sign in art class. He wants to be the first student. He already is. Every time you two work in the garden, every time we cook together, every time he sees you standing tall, he's learning. Mom? Sarah's voice was soft. Do you ever regret it, giving away all that money? Do you regret marrying Marcus? She considered. No, because without him, I wouldn't have Tommy, and without hitting rock bottom, I wouldn't have found myself again. Then you understand. The house, the money, they were never the inheritance. The inheritance was the lesson, the strength to stand up for yourself, the knowledge that you're enough, just as you are. Dad would be proud of you. He'd be proud of us both. Tommy came running back, a feather clutched in his small hand. Look, Grandma, the duck gave me a present. That's not from the duck, buddy, Sarah started, but I stopped her. It absolutely is, I said, winking at my grandson. That's a magic feather. It means you're going to fly high someday. Tommy beamed, clutching his treasure. Looking at them both, my daughter reborn, my grandson full of possibility, I knew every sacrifice had been worth it. The house on Maple Street would educate hundreds, but first, it had educated us. 1 year later, I stood in my transformed living room as the Thomas Richardson Learning Center celebrated its grand opening. The walls that once held only family photos now displayed student artwork, achievement certificates, and a large portrait of Tom in his favorite teaching cardigan. Maria Santos had come home from Stanford for the event. She stood at the podium we'd placed where our old TV used to be, speaking to a crowd of students, parents, and donors. Mr. Richardson tutored me at this very dining table, she said, pointing to the room where 20 new students would start free tutoring Monday. He never charged a penny. He said education was a right, not a privilege. This house continues that belief. Applause filled the space. I spotted Sarah in the crowd, wearing the professional dress she'd bought with her first charge nurse paycheck, Tommy on her hip. She was crying, but they were good tears, clean tears. Mrs. Hamilton took the podium next. In our first year, the Richardson Scholarships have sent 15 students to college. The Sarah Richardson Nursing Scholarship has funded 3 nursing students, and now this house will serve 100 students annually. More applause. Robert caught my eye and winked. He'd been instrumental in everything, refusing payment, saying Tom would haunt him if he charged me a cent. We have one more announcement, Mrs. Hamilton continued. An anonymous donor has established the Grace Richardson Teachers Award, recognizing educators who go above and beyond. Grace, would you present the first award? I hadn't known about this. My legs felt shaky as I walked to the podium. The envelope in my hands bore my name in elegant script. The first recipient, I read, my voice catching, is Jennifer Martinez, who tutors 30 students while working 2 jobs and raising 3 children alone. Jennifer came forward, tears streaming. Mrs. Richardson, your husband tutored me 20 years ago. Now I'm paying it forward. That's all he ever wanted, I whispered, hugging her. After the ceremony, as people toured the renovated spaces, Sarah approached with someone new, a kind-faced man with gentle eyes. Mom, this is Daniel. He shook my hand warmly. Mrs. Richardson, I've heard so much about you. Thank you for raising such an incredible woman. I just gave her the tools. She built herself. Tommy tugged at my dress. Grandma, can I show Daniel our garden? Our garden. Still ours, even as the house served others. As they walked outside, Sarah lingered. Mom, I've been thinking, when your time comes, I want to add something to the Learning Center. A reading room specifically for senior students. The Grace Richardson Reading Room. I'm not gone yet, sweetheart. I know. But I want you to know that I understand now. Legacy isn't what you leave behind in money. It's what you leave behind in hearts. That evening, after everyone had gone, I sat in Tom's chair, my chair now, in the small apartment I'd kept on the second floor. The first floor belonged to the future, but this space remained mine, filled with our life together. I pulled out the letter I'd written Sarah during the dark days, still sealed. I tore it up. She didn't need my words of disappointment anymore. She'd become the woman I'd always known she could be. My phone buzzed. A text from Maria at Stanford. Aced my anatomy exam. Thank you for believing in me. Another from Jennifer. The award money covers my kids' daycare for 6 months. I can tutor more students now. Thank you. One from Sarah. Thank you for not giving up on me. I love you, Mom. I looked at Tom's photo, the one from our 40th anniversary. We did good, my love. The house stands, Sarah stands tall, and hundreds of kids will rise because we stood firm. The house creaked its nighttime settling sound, but now it sounded different, fuller, like it was humming with the energy of all the dreams it would nurture. I was 69 years old, living rent-free in a house that had become a beacon of hope. My daughter had found herself again. My grandson grew strong and kind. And every day, students sat where my family once gathered, reaching for futures that seemed impossible. This was what winning looked like. Not money in the bank, but love in action. Not inheritance hoarded, but legacy shared. Tom always said the best teachers were the ones who knew when the lesson was complete. Class dismissed. Thank you so much for staying until the end of Grace's story. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself and setting boundaries with grace and dignity. What boundaries have you had to set with family? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Your experiences help others know they're not alone in these struggles. Share this with someone who needs to remember their worth. Remember, it's never too late to stand up for yourself. And sometimes the greatest inheritance you can leave is the lesson that dignity matters more than money. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.